Welcome back to the Next Level You podcast, where we help you build the bridge between your now and your next. I'm your host, Myaria Johnson, joined by my mother and co-host, Dr. Miriam Johnson. In our last episode, we explored what it means to belong to yourself. We walked through the ADKAR framework and how it connects to the imposter phenomenon and self-belonging. If you missed that episode, we recommend going back to part 1 before diving into today's conversation.
Hello. Today we are turning the lens outward. What does it mean to belong with others, at work, in relationships, and in your wider community? And how do you build that sense of belonging without losing the connection you have worked so hard to develop with yourself?
That is such a key point, because once you have done the inner work to anchor in your identity, your next challenge becomes, how do I bring that identity into the spaces I live and work in? This isn't always easy. Sometimes your internal sense of belonging doesn't quite match what you experience externally.
Absolutely. You might feel confident in who you are and still walk into a workplace, a family gathering, or even a group of friends and still feel like you're not fully seen or understood. That does not mean that you have failed at self-belonging. It means that you're moving through the next level of growth, practicing authenticity in real-world environments. By moving through the next level of growth, you are practicing one of my favorite principles, the Platinum Rule. Many of you have heard of the Golden Rule, which is to treat people the way you want to be treated. The Golden Rule assumes that all people like what you like, which is sometimes not the case. On the other hand, the Platinum Rule is about treating people the way they want to be treated. The Platinum Rule demonstrates empathy and acknowledges that individuals have different preferences on how they want to be treated.
We will walk through what that looks like in different life areas, then conclude with a powerful reflection on the stages of belonging, allowing you to see how they all fit together.
So let's begin where many of us spend a significant amount of time, the workplace.
Belonging in the workplace is a topic that's finally getting the attention it deserves, and for good reason. Belonging at work starts with people, not policies. According to Deloitte, employees who feel a strong sense of belonging at work report a 56% increase in job performance, a 50% reduction in turnover risk, and a 75% decrease in sick days. That's not just good for individuals, that's good for business. When belonging is missing in the workplace, it not only feels uncomfortable, but can also be stressful. Stress causes the body's automatic physiological reactions to perceived threats, known as fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and manage. You might find yourself in fight mode, constantly defending your perspective, speaking up, even when you feel emotionally exhausted. Alternatively, you might take the flight option, which could involve withdrawing from meetings, avoiding visibility, or job hopping in search of something safer. Freezing can manifest as staying silent in meetings, second-guessing every word in an email, or not advocating for yourself. And fawn, that's when you become the overachiever, the yes person, the one who sacrifices your boundaries in the hope that being agreeable will earn you safety and approval.
Those stress responses are real reactions because, let's be honest, achieving a sense of belonging at work is not always easy. It's one thing to attend team meetings or join company events. It's another thing entirely to feel like your ideas matter, like your voice is heard, and like you do not have to shrink who you are to succeed. Many of us cycle through all of the stress responses Maria mentioned, just trying to survive in the workplace where we don't feel seen or supported. But there's another option: manage. Managing your response means noticing the trigger, pausing, and choosing to respond with intention. It might look like setting a boundary, asking for clarity, or checking in with a mentor before reacting.
When we discuss creating a culture of belonging, we are also referring to a space where people do not have to live in survival mode, a place where managing stress is possible because psychological safety exists and is nurtured every day. That's exactly what I felt when I was part of a team that was geographically dispersed across the United States and abroad. We were not in the same office, time zone, or even continent at times, but we made the effort to foster belonging anyway. We created intentional rhythms of connection, monthly team meetings, celebrations of personal milestones, and even a group chat for things like music, wellness, and funny memes. These may sound small, but they built a culture of care.
Your team created touch points that made people feel like individuals, not just employees. That is so important, especially for hybrid or remote teams. It is not all about replicating water cooler talk. It's about cultivating psychological safety, which Harvard's Dr. Amy Edmondson describes as the belief that you can speak up, make mistakes, and be yourself without fear of humiliation or retaliation.
Yes, and I want to say this clearly. You do not have to wait for your company to create that culture. You can start by checking in with a colleague, honoring someone's contributions in a meeting, or inviting a new team member to share their background.
And if you are in a role or an organization where belonging feels inaccessible, perhaps the culture is exclusive, or you are the only one who looks like you or thinks like you, know that your presence still matters. It is okay to build a sense of belonging outside of your team through mentorship, employee resource groups, or professional communities.
Absolutely. Belonging is not always found, it's often created. And sometimes creating it is the most powerful leadership move you can make. That truth doesn't just apply in professional spaces, it shows up just as strongly in our personal lives, too. Relationships are often where our sense of belonging is most tested and shaped. Whether it is family, friends, or partners, each type of relationship influences how we see ourselves and how safe we feel being ourselves. And the truth is, even in our closest circles, belonging is not always automatic.
Let's begin with family. For many people, family can be a source of deep love and connection. However, even in loving families, differences in values, lifestyles, or beliefs can create a sense of distance. Sometimes it's unintentional, just a result of growth or generational differences. At other times, it is rooted in long-standing dynamics that are difficult to discuss. These types of family dynamics can trigger old stress responses too. Maybe you're in fight mode, always bracing for conflict, or feeling like you have to prove your worth. Maybe you default to flight, distancing yourself or avoiding tough conversations entirely. Freeze might look like shutting down or disassociating during family gatherings. And fawn, this often manifests as people-pleasing, remaining quiet, downplaying your beliefs, or absorbing the emotional labor just to maintain peace. I have experienced all of these stress responses at different times, but learning to manage, to stay aware of what's coming up for me and to respond rather than react has changed how I show up in family spaces. It does not mean that everything is perfect. It just means that I am no longer abandoning myself to keep the connection.
What matters most is recognizing that it's okay if your relationship with your family looks different than someone else's. Belonging in a family does not mean you have to suppress who you are to keep the peace. It means finding ways to remain authentic while also navigating the relationships that matter to you with care and respect, setting clear boundaries. Now, let's talk about friendships. Friendships are unique because they are chosen relationships, ones that ideally reflect mutual respect and care. But belonging in friendships can still feel complicated, especially when your values, interests, or pace of life begin to shift. The same nervous system patterns, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, show up in friendships too. If you have ever stayed in a surface level friendship out of habit or overextended yourself to be liked, you might have been in freeze or fawn mode. If you have ghosted people or stopped initiating altogether, that's a form of flight. And if you have become defensive, jealous, or overprotective when someone new enters your friend's life, that could be fight. But managing your response, checking in with your values, articulating your needs, and having honest conversations is how you keep the door open to a deeper connection without losing yourself in the process.
Exactly. You might have friends you've known for years, but as time passes, the connection does not feel the same. The conversations may stay surface level, or you may feel out of place in certain settings. This does not always mean the friendship has ended, but it might mean it's time to recalibrate.
It's natural to grow out of some friendships and grow deeper into others. I always encourage people to focus more on quality than quantity. But this is easier said than done nowadays in the age of social media, where reactions, followers, and viewers dictate how likable you are or how many friends you have. The more the merrier, right? Wrong. The people who really get you, the ones who celebrate your growth, listen without judgment, and support your evolution, are the relationships where belonging has room to breathe.
And let's not forget relationships or partnerships formed through dating and marriage. These are often where people want to feel the most seen and accepted. However, belonging in a relationship is not just about being loved, it's about being understood, respected, and valued for who you are, not for who someone wants you to be. In these relationships, stress responses can be even more intense. Fight might resemble arguing to protect your voice. Flight might mean emotionally pulling away when things feel vulnerable. Freeze could leave you stuck, unsure of what to do or what to say. And fawn might lead you to constantly accommodate your partner, even when it chips away at your needs.
In healthy relationships, when both people are working toward managing and regulating their own reactions, naming their boundaries, and responding with care, you should feel safe bringing your whole self to the table. Your dreams, your boundaries, your quirks, and your voice. When both people can be authentic and supportive of each other's growth, that is when belonging deepens.
And for those who are single, remember, your sense of belonging is not on hold until a partner shows up. You are already whole. The love you cultivate in your relationship with yourself and your community is just as meaningful and sustaining.
Belonging in any kind of relationship is not about perfection, it's about connection. And sometimes that connection requires effort, clarity, and even distance. But no matter the context, it always starts with the question, can I be fully myself here?
And if the answer is yes, nurture that space. If the answer is no, give yourself permission to make a change because you deserve relationships where you are not only included, but fully embraced.
Remember, stress responses are not signs of weakness. They are signs that you have lived through moments when your belonging was called into question. But you are not powerless. With awareness and support, you can shift from reacting to managing. And that shift, it opens the door to more authentic relationships in every area of your life. But belonging doesn't stop with the people closest to us. It also extends outward into the communities we choose and help shape.
Belonging in community is one of the most affirming and necessary forms of connection. Unlike family, friends, or partners, the community can be expansive in scope. It is where shared values, interests, and experiences unite people across backgrounds and life paths.
And for many of us, especially those who have felt out of place in other spaces, community becomes a place of restoration. I know that was true for me when I started a basketball themed social group within my professional organization. I was craving a sense of belonging that aligned with both who I am and what I love. And surprisingly, it wasn't just about basketball. It was about building community with others who shared my values and wanted to connect in a meaningful way.
That's what community does. It creates a container where people feel welcomed, heard, and valued, sometimes for the first time in a long time. And it often fills the gaps left by other areas in life. Maybe work feels transactional. Maybe your family does not quite get you. Maybe friendships have shifted. But community, this is where you choose to show up and others decide to meet you there.
And here's the thing, you don't have to wait to be invited. You can build a community. You can host the meetup, start the group chat, create the event, or join a cause you care about. Whether it's a book club, a faith-based gathering, a professional association, or a volunteer effort, you can plant yourself where you will grow.
Community also helps us remember that we're not alone. Research from the U.S. Surgeon General and institutions such as Harvard have shown that social connection is a crucial component of overall well-being. In fact, loneliness is considered a public health crisis linked to higher risk of depression, anxiety, and even physical issues like heart disease.
The data reminds us what our hearts already know. We were never meant to do life alone. We thrive in environments where we feel safe, affirmed, and seen, not just as workers or consumers, but as whole human beings.
And if you have been yearning for a community but have not yet found one, don't give up. Keep showing up. Keep following your curiosity. The people who are meant to walk with you will recognize your authenticity, and that is where belonging begins.
I have learned that community is less about being surrounded by people who are just like you and more about being surrounded by people who accept you exactly as you are. And when you find or create that kind of space, It's one of the most important acts of self-care you can practice. Let's bring everything together. Throughout this 2-part series, we have discussed how belonging is not just something we stumble into, it's something we intentionally build. But what does that process look like over time?
What we have found is that belonging often deepens in layers. It begins with the relationship you have with yourself and then radiates into spaces you move through, such as work, personal relationships, and the broader community. Let's walk through those 4 key layers. Number 1, self. This is the foundation. Belonging begins when you know, accept, and value who you are. That means getting clear on your values, being honest about your needs, and practicing self-compassion. If you do not feel at home within yourself, it becomes harder to feel at home anywhere else.
Number 2, work. For many of us, work occupies a significant portion of our time, and it can profoundly shape our self-perception. Belonging at work means feeling safe to contribute, being respected for your perspective, and not having to pretend to be taken seriously. And if that's not the environment you're in, it's okay to create micro communities of support or lead by example to foster inclusion.
Number 3, relationships. This includes family, friendships, and partnerships. These are the spaces where you hope to be known, accepted, and supported. But relationships can also challenge your sense of belonging, especially when growth changes the dynamic. Belonging here does not mean always agreeing with it. It means being valued, even when you're different. And sometimes it means redefining who is in your circle so that you can protect your peace.
Number 4, community. This is the outer circle, the spaces where you live, serve, and connect with others who share a cause, a passion, or a sense of purpose. Community is not just about showing up. It's about being seen and seeing others. And whether that community is built through a local organization, a professional group, or a social initiative, it gives you the chance to contribute meaningfully while being part of something larger than yourself.
These layers do not always follow a neat order. You may feel strong in your sense of self, but you may still be searching for a sense of belonging within a community. Or you might have deep friendships but feel disconnected at work. That's normal. Belonging is fluid, and the way we experience it can change within life seasons.
And that is the beauty of it. You are never stuck. Belonging can be nurtured in each of these areas, sometimes by starting small, sometimes by making bold choices, and always by staying grounded in who you are.
So wherever you are today, you may feel anchored, or you may still be searching for your confidence. Just know that your journey is valid, and you do not have to figure it out all at once. Each step counts.
And if nothing else, let this be your reminder. You are worthy of spaces that welcome the real you. Belonging is not about changing yourself to fit the world. It's about finding the spaces where you can show up fully and still be accepted. Before we close, let's pause and ground ourselves with a next check-in. If you've been following our podcast journey, you know this is where we take what we've discussed and translate it into intentional action. Remember, reflection without action is just thought. So let's take it further.
Here's your next check-in for this episode. Notice, where in life do you feel most disconnected right now? Is it with yourself, your family, friends, partner, co-workers, or community? Evaluate. What is contributing to that disconnection? Is it a lack of communication, misaligned values, past hurt, or simply neglect from being too busy? Experiment. What is one small step you can take this week to move closer to connection? It might be initiating a conversation, setting a boundary, reaching out to someone, or journaling to clarify what you need. Track. At the end of the week, ask yourself, do I feel a little more aligned, more anchored, more seen or heard? Even if nothing changed externally, did I show up differently?
This kind of reflection helps you build a life where belonging isn't left to chance. You are actively shaping the conditions for it to grow.
And don't forget, this is not about perfection. It's about presence. Each time you check in with yourself, you realign with your values. You remind yourself that you matter. You deepen your capacity for connection.
So whether your next step is a conversation, setting a boundary, joining a new community, or simply keeping a journal, you are taking the necessary steps, and we are so proud of you.
In our next episode, we will continue the A to Z journey, but today we hope you leave with a clearer sense of where you belong and why it matters.
You belong not because of what you do, but because of who you are. You belong not when you change yourself, but when you show up as yourself. And most importantly, you belong, especially when you are becoming. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the Next Level You podcast on platforms such as YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or Amazon Music. Check our show notes for details. And if you want to dive deeper into the concepts we covered in this episode, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by searching Next Level You. That's NEXTLEVEL and the letter U. Look for our bridge logo, and we'll see you soon.